To call the Board of Trustees here, the meeting of March 10th, 2020 to order. Roll call, please.
President McNally.
Here.
Trustee Brunig.
Here.
Trustee Hollenbach.
Here.
Trustee Whitwer.
Here.
Trustee Christensen.
Here.
Trustee Cumier.
Here. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All present.
Pardon me?
All present, sorry.
There's one absent. Okay. Why don't we stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Barb, can you tell us if this meeting has been properly posted?
The agenda was posted in the upper and lower levels of the Amundsen Center, the Cambridge Post Office, Hometown Bank, and also on the village website.
Okay, all right. Moving on here. We have public appearances and a presentation from the Cambridge Farm to School. So if you can come up, introduce yourselves, and sit at that table and tell us your story. We'd appreciate it.
I'm Ben Tipp. This is J.C. Eckerman, the president of Cambridge Farm to School. We don't really have a presentation. We just wanted to do kind of a meet and greet, anybody who's not aware of Farm to School, and then to discuss future plans to do a Fall Fest fundraiser for the Farm to School program.
So we would like to do a fall fundraiser at Veterans Park, kind of pick up for where the last ones have left off. We plan to have live music, a chili cook-off, and then bring back the favorites like the Scarecrow Fest, or the Scarecrow making, and FFA animals. We were wondering to make sure if it's okay if we could get a liquor license or beer and wine license for an event like that. And
we were also hoping to do a fun run in the morning. But yeah, as far as a preliminary meeting, there's still a lot of planning going on our end, but we wanted to make sure before we turn in our application that we were able to secure a date. So we have the application. Lisa emailed it to us, but we need to be able to know if a date is open before we can get the insurance stuff taken care of. So we're looking at October 17th for that. I don't know if there's a calendar available to us online or if you guys are able to tell us.
Actually, once I'm back in the office tomorrow morning, then I can look at the calendar that we have online.
When is Barktoberfest?
September
That's September?
19th, I believe.
Okay,
Yep.
'cause
That's
that's-
on the agenda for tonight. September 19th is
Okay,
their date.
Yeah.
As far as I know, and you're talking Veterans Park. 'Cause
We're talking
theirs-
Veterans Park,
Theirs is
yes.
actually in West Side.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
that's true.
The date sounds like it's open, but I need to double check tomorrow
Okay.
morning. So if you want to just give me a call at the office, and then we can also discuss the liquor license application and that kind of
Yeah, I think
information.
we would just be beer and wine. I think that's a
Right.
different one.
And that's all it would qualify for a temporary.
Right, okay.
Okay.
Can we back up, Benjamin? The Cambridge Farm to School, exactly for the benefit of viewers, people here. What is it
Absolutely.
that you do, and how do you benefit the folks here in Cambridge?
we work with the district and the community, and we have many programs. So one of them is we have a perennial edible garden out at the SLC, and we're growing raspberries. We've did a lot of experiments out there, and that the perennial edible, you can harvest them when the kids are still in school, and it's a sustainable way to have a garden plot out there. We have a green team at the elementary school, and we train them, and they're great. They volunteer, and they come in and help their classmates make wise choices on what's recyclable, what they can compost, and what they put in the trash. We're starting a green team at the KT school as well. We have the Chef in the Classroom program, and that's been at the elementary school for 12 years, and we just got that expanded into the high school. So this year, the freshman health class gets 4 days and it's hands-on, and they actually get to make and learn healthy recipes from Jean. And we're looking into expanding that into other schools in the future too, each year. You can only take on so much in a year. And then we also have the new EcoJs program, and that is, we work on educating the community on recycling and ways to reduce and just live a sustainable life. And there we are reaching out to some of the businesses to try to help them become more sustainable as well. What else do we have?
Yeah, just to add on to that, last year we became a 501c3. The Cambridge Farm to School program predates both of our involvement in it, going back quite a few years. But it's basically trying to connect youth to the most part, mostly youth. That's the backbone of what it is that we're trying to do, but it's also community-wide, and we're just trying to get people to think green and then connect children also to plants and get their hands dirty in the gardens. In addition to what JC talked about with the perennial edibles out at the SLC, we're going to be doing birdhouse gourds and stuff, trying to connect also with the scouts. So, we have, fingers in a lot of different spots, and we try to add kind of a program, sustainably add programs a little bit at a time, because we want to make sure that it is a sustainable program, so that even at the point where our volunteer board is no longer doing it, the torch can easily be passed, and these programs can continue to run without our involvement.
We also have, Project Tomato. So we have the community grow tomatoes, and then we make the food service director makes a signature pizza sauce, and they freeze it for the entire school year, and the kids get to use that. And we are starting a pilot hydroponic system at the KT school, so we can learn exactly how much produce can come from one unit, how long it takes, and then we can expand that program in the future. So we just keep kind of adding little programs here and there, and make sure that they're sustainable.
Yeah. I think
Is
that
this just
covers
for
all of it.
Cambridge schools, or are you doing it for Fort Atkinson or Jefferson?
Currently, it's just Cambridge.
Okay, all right. Okay, any other questions?
I have a question. Do you have any contact information or a website or anything we can go to if we want to volunteer for this?
Absolutely, yeah. We have a website.
It's cambridgef2s.com. You'll find a lot of
F2S?
F2S is in farm to school.
All together?
Mm-hmm.
.com.
And then our email address is just cambridgef2s@gmail.
Okay.
And is that the number 2?
Yep.
The number 2.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm excited about the idea that you guys want to have sort of a fundraiser that's really more than just a little fundraiser, but kind of another festival. And so I think that's great, and having it in Veterans Park too, to really draw people up along Main Street, I think that's fabulous. So I'm really looking forward to that in October.
Thank you.
And I know that the chamber, we've already reached out to them, and they're excited for that prospect too. We have had a fundraiser the past couple of years as a spring brunch at the elementary school, and we're able to incorporate quite the music programs and stuff also to come. But we had a huge snowstorm, that freak snowstorm.
2 years in a row.
2 years in a row, yeah. So it's not good timing for us, so we're going the opposite end there.
And I'm kind of excited that it's not at one of the schools. I don't have children, so for me, I'm very
Sure.
intimidated when I'm asked to go to the schools for something. So the fact that you're bringing me out to a park is much more accessible for me.
Well, that's good feedback, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess for us, besides getting in the application and being able to secure the date, is there, once we get further along with securing the different plans, what is it that the board would like from us going into the future?
Well, you'll have the insurance for the event,
Yes,
okay? You'll give us a certificate of insurance.
yep, with our application, yeah.
Okay, and we'll get the date set, and that'll be done with,
Then we're good to go.
okay?
All right.
Listen, Barb,
I think as long as you
Commend you.
guys get your applications in, right?
Yeah.
Schedule events.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Give us a,
Board will approve the park permit application as well, so. And things will come through them as well as through our office, so they'll be up to date too.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. Really
Yes,
appreciate
thank you
for
guys for
coming.
coming in.
Appreciate the
And
hard
thanks
work.
for what you're doing for the community and the children.
Yeah.
all right. We have one issue here coming up with rezoning, but is there anybody else that's here that wants to speak that's not on the agenda? Okay, Roxanne, why don't we go with you first? You raise your hand right away, so.
And could you please state your name and address?
Sure. So I am Roxanne Engelstead. I live on Clearview Road, 3045 Clearview Road in Christiana Township. So recently, on January 28th of this year, the village board approved the splitting of a parcel of land to create a new residential lot just off Frodness Road in the town of Christiana. The board voted on this proposed rezoning because of this particular parcel of land was located in the ETJ zone, that is the extraterritorial jurisdiction zone for the village of Cambridge. Now, the board may be faced with another issue associated with this ETJ zone. Let me take a couple of minutes to elaborate. As you are aware of, Invenergy is proposing to develop a utility-scale solar farm in the town of Christiana that could possibly cover many thousands of acres. Last September, Invenergy held an informational meeting at the town of Christiana where they publicly presented a map illustrating the outermost boundaries of the proposed solar farm. I have photographs of that map, and you were just given that copy. This is from the Invenergy meeting. If you compare the Invenergy map with the map of the ETJ zone for the village, which you were given that as the second map, okay? This is the Dane County map. You will see that Invenergy is proposing to use a very large portion of the ETJ zone for their solar operations. In fact, much of the ETJ zone for Cambridge may have already been leased or contracted to Invenergy. It should be noted that Invenergy typically leases the land for 25 years with an automatic renewal of an additional 25 years. On the side, I have to say, we're all aware of the need for more renewable energy. In fact, prior to my retirement in 2017, I served 6 years as chair of the UW-Madison Mechanical Engineering Department, and the Solar Energy Lab was housed in my department. You may be aware that the state of Wisconsin has not yet created regulations for utility-scale solar farms. What should concern you here is that Invenergy is proposing what might become the largest solar farm east of the Rocky Mountains. Invenergy is an international company with headquarters in Chicago. Instead of looking at desert land with more concentrated sunlight or even going north of us where there is sandy soil, they are looking at our community for this mega project because of its proximity to the switching station in the town of Christiana. They also benefit by getting into our state before the legislature develops regulations. They are quietly signing up landowners west of the village, taking some of the best farmland in the country and obviously in our state. This will greatly restrict farming in the township and the village's ability to annex land for future growth and will ultimately change the character of the entire community. It's especially important to consider the long-term effects, since the land immediately adjacent to the west of the village might not be available for 25 or yet 50 years. The Public Service Commission is able to issue permits for these projects without going through local zoning. As village board members, you may think you cannot stop this development. That may be true in the end, but that does not mean that there is nothing you can do to try to protect your interests. You need them, meaning Invenergy, to honor your ETJ zone, for starters. I urge you to have a discussion at your next board meeting about the possible implications of this development. Request information and begin to develop a response. I urge you to do this before inviting Invenergy to one of your meetings. I recently heard Invenergy's prepared presentation at the town of Vienna. You will want to ask your specific questions and not just watch their promotional PowerPoint presentation. If you are asking yourselves, what can I do? I offer the following suggestions. Develop a local impact statement so that you can send to the Public Service Commission. Send a letter to the commission asking to be heard before any permit is issued. Voice your concerns during citizen input at the actual hearing put on by the Public Service Commission. Schedule a joint meeting with the town of Christiana and possibly the village of Rockdale. Gather information on property values and tax implications. Gather information of issues regarding the water drainage that might affect the entire village. Gather information effects on wildlife, the decommissioning of the panels and the land reclamation, the height and type of fencing, the magnetic fields, and the list goes on and on. Most of all, you'll want to insist that Invenergy show you a current map of the proposed site, as landowners under contract have been forced to sign non-disclosure agreements. So in conclusion, I have to say that I firmly believe, that the residents of the village and the township will all agree that the future of Cambridge will depend upon the ability to grow and prosper. To do this, you'll need that ETJ zone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roxanne,
Yes.
would you be willing to give a copy of that to our staff so we could include that in the meeting minutes?
Okay, I need to.
No, that would be
retype it.
fine if you could just get that to him at some point, because I would like to review what you read in more detail at a later time.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we do have that as a future agenda item.
Great.
Already.
All right, Christina, you had your hand up.
Yeah, would I
Please,
this was,
please come up to the table.
is this speaking to anything that's coming, or is it anything specific?
If it's specific about something that's coming up,
Yes.
we'll wait,
Okay.
okay? This is just for things that are not on the agenda. All
Okay.
right? Bob?
Thank you. I just wanted to invite you all and the public to help out at the Bike-O-Rama, which is starting on Friday, but we need people to be staffing the booth that the connector trail is set up. We've got maps and we've got some displays and a video, but we need some help. We've only got 3 people now that have volunteered to sit at the booth at the Alliant Energy Center. So if you're interested, or anybody from the public is interested in helping out and going to the Bike-O-Rama, please give Steve Struss a call, or contact me. You're welcome to do that. And by the way, I'm Bob Salov, and I'm very interested in this bike connector trail.
I'm sorry, when is that for? For Friday?
Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, Saturday and Sunday, okay.
Yep.
Do you have an email address or a phone number that people could use to get a hold of you?
Sure, 608-513-4046. And the email is bob@salov.net. I prefer you to text me or call.
All right,
Great, thanks.
thanks for coming by. Okay, anybody else here for public appearances? All righty, moving on. Approval of the consent agenda, which has included the February 25th board minutes for the trustees, economic development, and the park reservation for Barktoberfest. I would accept the,
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
okay. Any discussion necessary? All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, passes. Okay, moving on. President's report. I just want to highlight three things that I have been involved with. And these are not in any chronological order, but I'll just go in what I have here. Had a meeting regarding on March 9th with the ponds. Don Treeloff and another group of folks, we got together and I was listening to them talking about the Lions Club is going to be putting in benches down at our ponds. I think there's 4 of them. And then Wilbur will figure out where they should go, but they're looking at doing that. And they will seat 2 people, and so that's been done. There's going to be a clearing of brush and trees and invasive species. They do need to bury some trees into the water. I wouldn't say bury them, but they're going to drop the trees into the water so that the fish can use that as a natural, I forget what they called it, net something. There will be a controlled burn out there in the spring. They haven't had one in a while, and they may do this 2 years in a row. They're looking for some overflow pipes. There's a danger of one coming out, and they can't figure out where it's at, so they're in the process of trying to find that. And then after everything is cleaned up, I had just mentioned the idea that perhaps we could have a trustee meeting down there, just to see it, and because they're doing a lot with the Lions Club and maybe the schools. Okay, on March 3rd, Economic Development, that committee met, and we're reviewing specialized data that came in from Christiana. She was kind enough to share that with us. We talked a little bit about, the village has about 20 properties scattered around, and just to see if there was a way that perhaps we could sell some of these, but I don't know if that's going to happen. They're so small that, I mean, we're talking 12 feet and that kind of thing. So neighbors are probably taking care of it. I just thought maybe it was a way of raising some capital, some cash, but it doesn't look like what we'd raise would be enough to offset the cost to that. But I raised it as an idea. There has been signs that have been taken down on Main Street. So if you have a building and your lease or you're no longer in business, we don't want you to leave your sign up. That sign must come down. And so you'll notice that there have been a few buildings that have been stripped of old tenants. And that's part of the economic development. And then lastly, we're just talking about goal setting. So what we're going to try to do, and I'll share that with you at an upcoming meeting. And then lastly, on March 3rd, I met with the Chamber of Commerce. As you know, we have $5,000 that we have given to them, and they gave an update on various projects. And then we also listened to Bernie Nicolay with the school system talking about the upcoming bonding referendum. Mm-hmm. So those are the 3 things that I wanted to just mention here today. Moving on, Library Board. Paula?
It's actually not on.
Yeah, it's on here.
Oh, it is, I'm sorry.
It's on here.
I was looking at the wrong one.
Yep. So Library Board, we talked about our usual reports. We looked at some of the labor costs for the library. Making sure we understand how effectively we're using vacation, sick, and hours, et cetera. So we're going to be making some different reports there. Friends of the Library, this is their month for membership drive, and at the end of the month they're going to have their chocolate frenzy on, I believe, the 31st. I'm kind of looking at Patty back there, the 31st, at the library. So people want to come and support the Friends of the Library. We reviewed a couple of the employee handbook. We're going to go through a full review of the employee handbook and make some differences there. We've got a couple new volunteers that are working at the library. And then we had talked about the program that we did on the LEAP, on February 29th, which was LEAP Day, which was kind of fun stuff that we did. And that's about it.
Okay. I received my renewal, and I noticed that you couldn't give them a credit card.
Friends of the Library?
Yeah.
You would have to take that up with the Friends of the Library. That is not part of the library board.
Okay. All right. I will take it up with Friends of the Library. I'm not sure of the distinction, but I was trying to give them, you know, the annual amount, but you couldn't. All right. Any other questions for Paula in the library? Okay. Eric, last evening, Plan Commission. What can you tell us, because you were running the meeting?
Yeah, sure. Plan Commission met last night. I see a lot of the same faces in the crowd tonight that were there last night, so I anticipate a good discussion with the next couple of items we have on the agenda down in new business for tonight. We did make 2 recommendations to the board to approve the rezone request. The vote was not unanimous. There was some dissenting votes, so we'll have a chance to discuss that more in detail. That's about it.
Okay. All right. Questions for Eric on what happened last night? Okay, moving on. Barb, village office update?
Administrator Moen has been busy finalizing out the February election, which includes banking in all of the voters and putting in all the registrations and such that came in. And ballots for the April election, which will be held on April 7th, the ballots should arrive here by March 17th, and then we'll mail out absentees right away for those. That is, the April 7th is the spring election presidential preference primary. Hope everybody gets out to vote. And also, we're working diligently on the very long laundry list that we get from the auditors. They will be here the week of March 23rd through the 25th. And that's for the 2019 audit. And so Vicky's working hard with Dan to gather the utility stuff, and I and Lisa are gathering everything in relation to general, et cetera. I was going to provide you a budget comparison tonight, but what happened in the afternoon preempted me actually getting it printed. So we will have the treasurer's report on the next agenda.
Okay, thank you. All right, questions for Barb? All right. Moving on, bills. I see that we have bills in the amount of $244,155.36.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills and set them out.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, any concerns over the bills? Barb, I had mine, but they were taken care of, so
Okay, good.
I'm good to go. Anybody else? Okay. Let's go with a roll call on this since it's money.
Okay, Trustee Brunig,
Yes.
Trustee Cumbier,
Yes.
President McNally,
Yes.
Trustee Whitwer,
Yes.
Trustee Hollenbach,
Yes.
and Trustee Christensen.
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor.
All right. Those are approved. Okay, now we get into some new business, and we've got a CSM request from Cambridge Real Estate Ventures combining and reconfiguring some parcels, and a recommendation from the Plan Commission. So Barb, why don't you just lead off with this one on where we're at, and we'll kind of go from there. And Todd is here. And some other
Okay, so last night, a public hearing was held on regarding the rezoning request. Questions were raised and discussed. There is no TIF at this time, no apartments. There were various questions about permitted uses and conditional uses, and there will be stormwater retention ponds required, and various questions were discussed from the public. The first item is the CMS request, which was recommended from the committee with a 4-to-1 vote. for a CSM request from Cambridge Real Estate Ventures combining and reconfiguring of the parcels as stated in the agenda. Currently, they are 3 awkward parcels which they are reconfiguring to allow for usable lots, and they are working with the DOT to have a 4-way stoplight at that intersection. And it is my understanding that the property owner is paying for the cost to that. And so that is the first item before you for approval. And again, recommendation was made by the Plan Commission with a 4-to-1 vote.
Okay. Why don't we have Todd come up, and then we will have input from the folks that have gathered. But if you want to hit the highlights here, Todd, and what you're trying to do here with your first request.
Well, it's a pretty simple matter. I mean, obviously, the existing 3 parcels were very awkward. They've been under that configuration for many years. So what we're just trying to do is consolidate and get everything into a little bit more appropriate document for moving forward. And this affords to identify how the lot configurations would be broke out, where the road and the cul-de-sac would be, how we're dealing with the wetlands and that sort of thing. So.
Okay. Your wetlands have already been approved, or they're in the process of being approved with DNR?
Well, if you look at the CSM in front of you, you'll see that there is a little wet. It's determined. We left it on the CSM for discussion so that you understand. But you can see that there's a small, what was deemed navigable waterway, which was a man-made ditch from years ago. And if you notice on the CSM, and the reason we left it on as a note is the wetlands go all the way from the property abutting Christiana all the way to 1218. So there was no access to the property without crossing the wetlands. So we went to the DNR and the Army Corps of Engineers and went through the appropriate permitting process and review. And what they determined is if you look at there's a dashed lines between Lot 1 and Lot 2 that calls out a 40-foot storm easement. And the DNR and the Army Corps of Engineers have given us a permit to reconstruct that drainage ditch in that location to continue to handle the water appropriately.
I just got a quick question. Where is that drainage ditch going to go to then?
Right now, it's going right back into the wetlands. It's just going in to the wetlands a couple 100 feet further to the south than it was before.
Because at some point, Dalen Creek starts back there, I believe. And right now, there's a lot of water going down Dalen Creek.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think you should have an engineer take a look at this and model this land that
It's
you're
already
going
been
to...
done.
Huh?
It's already been done.
Okay, all right. Because I know when we get 4 inches of rain, the amount of water that goes between the Shell station and the subway is a lot of water. And now we're going to add more water. We may be...
No, I mean, actually, the water is going to be much better controlled, and more water is going to stay on that site than not leave it.
I hope so.
So are you talking about some kind of a retention pond in there, or?
Well, there will be retention ponds on the property, yes.
Okay.
But that's a different discussion than the CSM.
Yeah, I know, and I'm kind of getting back and forth. I want to ask you about your entrance, because you're now across the street from 134. So
Correct.
Is this the appropriate time, or do I wait on it? And,
Depends if it's pertinent to the CSM, Mark.
That's the second one.
I think that'd be more pertinent for the CSM than it would be for the rezoning. Because I think the stoplights would be, or the stop sign would be more how the access to it, the access to that space. So I think that would be, I would consider it more under this one, Mark, the stop sign.
all right, rezoning request?
I would think so, yeah.
All right, I'll hold off on that one then.
Okay. we're
No,
gonna
no,
hold
I
off
think
on
it's
that.
under this one.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, I think it's under this one, the stop signs, because this is the, yeah.
Yeah, okay, well,
I got-
here's,
okay.
let me give it to you, because when we first met, I understood that you were gonna have to put in a roundabout at 1218.
Not a roundabout.
And then the entrance
Not a
to,
roundabout, Mark.
not a roundabout?
That's it.
Okay. But then the entrance to your property, the Donna Merck property, was gonna be further down, and it was gonna be right across from,
It's always been proposed at parallel or adjacent to 134 as a continuation
Yeah.
based on DOT feedback from me originally. It's
Okay.
never, ever been in another location.
all right, okay. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
And so, at this point, that's a controlled intersection.
Correct.
There is no more roundabout.
Never was, but no.
Okay. I thought there was.
I think the only people who's talked about roundabout is DOT has made noises about roundabouts, just in generalities, but nobody's ever specifically talked about putting in a roundabout.
Okay, all right.
I just have one question. If you're gonna, I really have a problem with putting stoplights on a major highway, which is 12 and 18, which moves a lot of traffic.
This is not coming from me. This is directly from the
understand
DOT.
that. Well, what they'll do is they'll let you put the stoplights in, and then they'll put a roundabout in later.
No.
I doubt it.
I mean,
That's-
Because we have a real problem with the 12 and 18 split off, where 12 goes one way and 18 goes the other. There's been a lot of issues with that. And we're going to really jam it up now, right in that area. That's just my opinion.
Okay, are there comments from the public regarding this first CSM request? I'm gonna,
Mine's the mixed state.
why don't you come up though, Christiana, please? If you want to just stay there, Todd, just make room.
So my comment is to the board, I guess.
Could you
My name
please
is
state your name and address?
Christiane Lang. My address is 136 West Main Street in Cambridge. I have a business there. I was at the meeting last night, which was informational. So, in discussion with some other business owners downtown who were not able to be here tonight, I was asked to kind of speak to these issues. So I would like to offer my concerns regarding the approval of the rezoning and combining of parcels for the proposed site at the Highway 12-18 areas of wetlands and ag lands surrounding the Shell station for Cambridge Real Estate Ventures. This proposed property is one of the faces of our village and highly visible to those who approach Cambridge from the west as they enter our village. While the suggested changes could result in the revenue that our village needs, I would like the village to proceed with caution. The way the current ordinances are set up, we have no way to know prior to these approvals what businesses will actually be in place in these parcels. That being said, I strongly believe the village should consider the risk it takes with the future of this space in Cambridge. Once this plan is approved, the village, its residents, and those that pass through will have to live with whatever is put into that space for quite a long time. I believe the village needs to look at the bigger picture of how this could potentially affect the residents or other existing businesses in the village. Any number of the suggested businesses on the business highway list could duplicate current businesses in our village and potentially cause a business that already has sweat and equity and history in our village to close. Rightly so, the residents of Cambridge are concerned with runoff and flooding, so I would like to make sure that the village board members and the planning commission understand how the runoff is to be handled. I realize that Mr. Schultz is working with the proper channels, but I would like the village to be able to understand it and not just go on what is said. So I would do your homework. I am not by any means against new development. but I would like to see it done in a way that enhances our existing village, not one that competes, but complements what we currently have. I fully understand that Mr. Schultz is bearing some of the costs with regards to the DOT and road work that is there that Cambridge could benefit from, but I also know that as a businessman and a developer, he would not be taking this on without potential for profit, nor do I blame him for doing that. But I have a vested interest in this town and community because I am a current business owner, and my future and my livelihood are interdependent on the choices that the village board makes. So thank you for your time.
Thanks,
you.
Christiane.
All right, any other public comment? You will come forward, sir.
Good evening. Michael Day, representing the Piggly Wiggly up in the corner. And my obvious concern is I don't want another grocery store coming into town, so competitive in personal reasons. But I think just as importantly is, and it's a question I don't know the answer to, is once the zoning is changed, what are your options if they want to put in any other type of business? And there are allowed uses, gas stations, other things like that. But in the conditional uses, basically anything is allowed. And if they come with something in the conditional uses, what are your legal rights to deny it based on anything? And it says such use shall be subject to consideration of the Plan Commission with regard to such matters as the creation of nuisance conditions or the public for the users or nearby areas, creation of traffic hazards and things like that, or other factors. But is there any legal standing to be able to say what is going to go there or not? And if you zone it that way right now, unfortunately, there hasn't been any transparency to know what is going to go there. And if you have 4 properties with between 3 and 9 acres, I hate to say you can put a super center in there with 35 acres, but do we, the village, have any control over that once the zoning has been changed for the whole parcel?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Michael. Anybody else?
My name is Katie Jeffrey, and I'm not really representing anybody except maybe my neighborhood, because I'm one of the people that live and will butt against the new proposed place. I was here last night, and I heard that it's 30 feet. Am I correct that they can build? That's not very far away. I mean, that's about half the room from my lot line. That is not a lot, and I can't think of anybody here who would love to have that close to their property. Then I thought about lights and businesses being lit up at night. That's really close to a neighborhood, and I want you to think about the neighbors. I understand that we need things in our community to raise money, but that close and not knowing what could be there, I think of a used car lot. I don't want that in my backyard. A used campers, whatever it may be. If we don't really have a say on what goes back there, what is that going to look like when we come into town for people visiting? And what's it going to look like for our neighborhood in our backyards? So I want you to take into consideration. And the last thing is, you talk about a retention pond. And I don't really know all the details about what retention ponds look like or where this one would be placed, but that's a big concern in a neighborhood to have a retention pond that close. I mean, I'm imagining a big pond sitting there and mosquitoes and everything else, but where would that be? Is it going to be close to the houses? So those are things I really hope you take into consideration when you decide what to do. Because ultimately, Mr. Schultz, and I understand it's a business for you, but you're leaving and you're not living here, but we'll all be here. So I want you to, I'm hoping, listen to what some of us are concerned about. And the traffic, I can't even imagine the stoplights at that corner.
I can't either,
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Lisa Leadholm. I live at 106.
I'm sorry, what's your first name?
Lisa Leadholm.
Thank you.
106 Center Court, Cambridge. A proud resident of the Westridge subdivision since 1984. So we knew the time might come when something like this might happen. But speaking for many of the neighbors in our subdivision, we all share the same concerns. They were here the last time we met at this point regarding the proposal with concerns about the water runoff problems. Yes, it looks like in the plan there is some water study that was done and some development for storm and utility easements, but once again, I can't envision what that looks like, and I asked last night what that might appear to people in our neighborhood. So I don't have enough experience with that.
Well, first and foremost, that has nothing to do currently with this.
I understand that one, Todd, but these two projects are...
But the point is, until final engineering is complete, and we're probably within a very short window of time because we've already interacted with Town and Country on multiple RFIs. I don't want to throw out anything that's inappropriate. There will be at minimum 2 retention ponds that are going to be required by the state to control and hold the water on that property. The one thing I've heard for 2.5 years in trying to come up with an appropriate project for this property is, our basements are flooded, I'm sick of the water. Well, we'll be dealing and addressing that issue. It'll be much better than it is right now. So.
Do you have evidence of that in other projects and developments you've done?
It has nothing to do with me personally. It's state requirements for these types of activities.
So the water runoff was a huge concern and continues to be, and I canvassed the neighborhood again this afternoon, and that was one of the concerns that continued to come up. Was there a guarantee that the water problem would be better for us? Couldn't get much worse. Other concerns that were expressed last night by the Planning Commission were the close proximity to the proposed development, the lack of transparency in terms of what may go in there. There are 7 pages of possible businesses that could appear there.
There's no lack of transparency. The fact of the matter is, any one of those uses could have someone that decides they're interested in locating in Cambridge with their business, and they would come and purchase the lot. But there is nothing. I'm not building the buildings. I am just improving the dirt, putting in the roads and the sewer and the water, and selling lots.
Selling lots.
Correct.
Okay. Last night, a question was asked in terms of the residential butting up against the commercial district. Will there be a buffer zone? Will there be green space? Or were there examples of other communities or parts of the town where that occurred? We're concerned about that 25 to 30 feet and what we might be staring at in our backyards.
And that is totally up to the discretion of the Plan Commission in the future to set what they deem as a necessary buffer or screen when an individual decides to purchase that lot and bring their plans in for approval and construction and review.
So those are all things we're going to need help and support with as we reach that point, because we're very concerned. I guess I'd like to ask our wonderful board here in Cambridge what our vision is for Cambridge, for the development, the next 25, 30, 50, 100 years down the road. What would you like to see as people come into Cambridge from Madison? We have to be really careful again in terms of what is placed there, what we're the proudest of in this community. And I know that you all have our best interest in mind, but this scares the heck out of us in terms of what our community could look like.
Okay.
Well, if you listen to Roxy give her proposal today, we may not have control of that. They may be putting solar panels right up to the village lot line, and we may not be able to stop it. We're gonna try, but there's a lot of solar panels gonna go in, and they're gonna encroach into the ETZ, which goes all the way to
Yeah.
Clearview Road and beyond, so.
She asked.
All right.
And all the way to PQ. That
25
was
years
going to
from
be
now.
set aside for future development in Cambridge, but I
True,
believe
but
most
you
of that's,
gotta
at
think.
least half of it's going to go into solar panels.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, those were just some of the questions that not just myself, but our family and the neighbors in the Westridge subdivision had. Many of them couldn't get here in a short amount of time to be present tonight, but we all share the same concerns. We appreciate your help as we take this new journey, and we understand your situation as well. But we live here. We live here, and we're very proud of our community.
As you should.
May I ask how many homes you're representing tonight? Approximately.
Well, in our subdivision, I think I spoke with probably 12 to 13 today. Last time that I canvassed the neighborhood, it was probably about 24. Pretty much everybody within our 3-block subdivision. I know others on Madison Street as well.
There's 6 actual
Had
homes that
concerns.
abut the property.
And I spoke to others in the neighborhood.
No, I understand. I'm just letting them.
Right. I spoke to the 6, and then there were others in the subdivision as well.
Okay. All right, other questions? Thank you. Anybody else want to come forward and share your opinions or questions? Come on up, sir. We'll need you to identify yourself, and
Yeah.
I'm forgetting that, but
My name's Nathan Perry. I live at 402 North Pleasant Street. So I guess
I'm sorry, what was your first name?
Nathan
Nathan, thank
Yep.
you.
And I didn't get the last name.
Perry, Perry. So I just have a few questions. Well, not questions, just general concerns about this with the proposed rezoning in regards of the broad scope of what could go there and how with how the code is writ, how we might not have much control over what might go in there. There's numerous things that could go in there that may or may not be good visually for Cambridge as you come in. For example, under the code, trailer park could go in right there under this listing as highway business. There's a lot of other stuff that could go in there under the provision, under the zoning options with the provisional permits. I just have concerns about the village losing control or even just the approval of businesses that would go in there, not necessarily what they do, but how it represents us as a community. That's it.
Thank you.
all right. Anybody else want to come up? Okay. We'll close the public part of it, I guess.
I'll make a motion to approve to follow the recommendation from the Plan Commission and approve the CSM request from Cambridge Village Estate Ventures LLC to combine and reconfigure the parcels as noted in meeting minutes. Or meeting agenda, sorry.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay,
Now
discussion.
we can discuss.
Yeah.
So
Chris, go ahead.
I think we have a lot of concerns from the public, and I think we would be doing our public a disservice if we didn't, if we weren't able to discuss those concerns. So I don't know what our options are when it comes to taking a look at our ordinances that these pertain to. But I think we should discuss some of these concerns.
So I think right now, we're just talking about them combining and reconfiguring the parcels. So I don't know that there's any concerns from an ordinance perspective.
You had a concern about stoplights.
So,
That's not really part of this, though, is it?
so I would consider the stoplights part of this reconfiguration, because the reconfiguration has to do with how you're going to get in and out of the property as well, and I would consider the stoplights part of that. So let's take the zoning piece is going to come up next, but just from a reconfiguration perspective. I don't see, so in my opinion, we want that area developed. I think the village board has wanted that area developed since I've been on the village board and before I've been on the village board. I think the reconfiguration of the parcels to make them usable parcels makes absolute sense. So from that perspective, I don't know that I have any concerns about the reconfiguration and combining of those parcels. That's where I'm at.
I'm also in agreement. I think reconfiguring the parcels, combining it into one would make more sense. And if the rezone doesn't go through, it could be more desirable to someone else to buy as one large chunk as opposed to several smaller parcels. Stoplights I'm not sold on, but if you drive down 12 anyways, you hit a bunch of stoplights anyways.
I love the idea of stoplight there. I live on Main Street. People go past my house 40 miles an hour on a regular basis.
I agree.
And the Jake brakes from the semis on a regular basis. If there's a stoplight on the edge of town to get people to go slower, I'm all for it.
We may have more accidents coming into town, but that's the way it is.
Because people are
don't pay
trying to run the
attention, so-
stoplight?
Huh?
Because people are trying to run the light?
Not necessarily running the lights, but there may be 10 cars stopped and another car come up behind them and just plow into the rear end of those cars.
May I ask?
That's nothing new, though, so.
So the stoplight, it's at the intersection of 134.
Correct.
From there forward, nothing would change. You'd still have the turn lane to get onto 18.
So, yeah, I will have to install turn lanes in both directions.
Is it just a one turn lane? I don't want to.
I'll have to, well, there'll have to be,
there'll
there'll have to be a right turn lane going into the property and a right turn out of the property. I think the evaluation was, since there's already a right turn lane going into 134, that doesn't need to be changed.
Okay, yep, that makes sense.
But I have to pay for all of those highway improvements as well as the lights and the signals and the permits. And so there's 10,000 cars a day roughly that travel that corridor. So I've tried to turn out a 134 to come left into the village more times than I can count, and have sat there for 10, 15 minutes before it was safe to pull out. So
Well, that was the same way with the intersection 12 and 18 and 73 a few years back.
So
You know,
I
at
mean,
night, you'd wait 5 to 10 minutes to be able to make a left-hand turn onto 73.
from a public safety standpoint, even though it's costing an enormous amount of money, I think it's probably a much better thing for everyone that travels that corridor.
What about left turn lanes? Somebody coming 12 and 18 and wants to go up 134.
Well, that'll be a four-way metered stop and go lights.
Okay. Kind of closed.
Just a quick question on this. Will there be repercussions to the second entrance to the gas station? Because you're really close to that
No.
second.
No.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay, questions again from trustees here, where we're at with this. And
Comment.
Comments? We've got a motion and a second. I have questions, but they're really pertaining to the second part of this, so I'm going to save my, what I have. If there isn't anything else, I'll call a vote. All those in favor of the CSM request from Cambridge Real Estate Ventures for these 3 properties and the recommendation from Plan Commission, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, hearing none. The first part of this has passed. Okay. Now we get into the rezone request from Cambridge Real Estate Ventures regarding these parcels from ag and mixed use to business highway, and a recommendation from the Plan Commission. Barb, any comments before we start off on this?
So last night at the meeting, the item was also on the agenda and discussed with questions. Mr. Schultz felt that requesting the zoning was the best use of the land. It would be cost prohibitive to try to go residential. No structures can be placed under the utility lines. The ditch relocation is not affected by the rezoning, and the request is to rezone from ag and mixed use to business highway. There was discussion and concern about the 30-foot buffer between commercial and residential. Positives were putting the value on the tax base at a larger value. General business would be allowed under the business highway, and there was further discussion regarding the signs and the lighting and the process of moving forward if approved. Plans would need to go through the normal approval process through Plan Commission for any type of business that would want to come in there and such. So this would come back to Plan Commission and then to Village Board before any business would be approved to go in. So there would be further discussion for that at that time. And so it is on the agenda tonight to determine whether or not to approve the rezone request from Cambridge Real Estate Ventures, rezoning the parcels as stated on the agenda from ag and mixed use to business highway, with a positive recommendation from the Plan Commission, and the vote at Plan Commission was a 4-to-1 vote approving and recommending to the board.
All right, before we get to you, Todd, Eric, is there anything, again, you gave us a report earlier that was that Barb didn't mention from the Planning Commission last evening on this matter that she hasn't already said, or gone over?
No.
Okay. All right, Todd, what can you tell us about your request, your rezoning request?
Well, I mean, as near as I can see after, painstaking review of your existing zoning districts and ordinances, I feel this is the best use for a property on the edge of town that has that much highway frontage. There's challenges with that property with the overhead utility easements. There's wetlands. People have voiced their concerns about, well, that's the first impression of Cambridge as you come in from Madison. Well, it looks pretty unattractive to me. So I'm not asking for you guys to do something because I want it done. I looked at your ordinances and your rules and regulations, and I felt what you've already adopted and what your job to oversee and execute as elected officials and appointed officials and is the ordinances and the rules that are currently in place. So I'm not asking for something that's out of the ordinary. We've tried multiple other ways to conceivably put an acceptable project on that undesirable piece of property, and this is the best foot that I think anyone will be able to put forward in that. Anyone can come into town and buy any piece of property with if it's zoned appropriately and bring in their building plans. That's how communities thrive and grow. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to understand the exclusivity of where, even though it's an approved zoning district or ordinance that you already have on the books, you don't, I mean, what are the alternatives? We discussed it last night. I mean, the mixed use that's currently on the property allows for a much more convoluted development activity than what we're proposing to ask for in a blanket zoning so that you have continuity throughout the whole development.
Okay. Anything else?
I got a question. Are you proposing to change the elevations of that property, the way that, from the way it is right now?
Well,
Because I'd like to see the finished floor heights of the existing development behind you and the existing floor heights of what you're proposing to do, to make sure that they aren't going to get flooded out.
Well, first and foremost, we won't get approvals based on the formula, the stringent formulas for stormwater retention that are in place currently.
What we've seen over the last 5 or 6 years, when we get a rainstorm, we may get 4 or 5 inches at a time. Now, those retention ponds going to be able to take that 4 or 5 inches of rain.
Every retention pond that'll be within this parcel will retain and hold its water. Now, you know, you're kind of, I don't want to say anything that's the water coming into the village of Cambridge does not start at that property line. It starts much further west than that. So, you know, the things that we're going to need to do to get approvals for the engineering and design with the state are way more stringent and are going to handle and maintain a lot more water on that site than has ever been held on that site.
Okay. Before we get into just the trustees and our questions and what we may have, I'll offer this last opportunity because we had 2 motions. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to ask while we're still in the public part? Mike, if you want to come forward again. I'm only doing this because these 2 were somewhat similar and where it's at. So please introduce.
Hi, Michael Day again, Cambridge, Piggly Wiggly. I guess I just want to reiterate, are your hands going to be tied for anything that comes in the future? And do we know that for certain or not? And secondly, can you actually consider the zoning for any new project that comes up when there's details about that project? Right now, it's just a 37-acre vacant land property that we're going to sell the lots off. But can you then consider the zoning as a new project does come up and we actually know what the business is that wants to go in there, or how it's going to affect the village and existing
I guess I have a
businesses or
question.
anything else?
If you sell a piece of property to a developer or whoever wants to build something there, it has to come before plan and the board first. What if they want to put a new, seeing it's almost a corner lot, are we going to put a Walgreens in there? And that'll run the person downtown out of business. I've seen it happen.
I don't mean to say this with any disrespect, but this is a very small community. If you know much of anything about corporate structure and appropriations, you're not going to have the mega subsidiaries coming into town trying to chase anybody out. I mean, fast foods have a pretty set, tried and true method of, they won't even enter a community if it's under 10,000 people. You know, there have been a few exceptions, but they're basically on the interstate. So I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm surprised, and I'm happy, but I was all surprised for years driving through this community that there was such a robust and vibrant grocery store in a community of this size. Because I know other communities, 6,000, 8,000 people struggle to get a responsible, quality grocery store in town. So, you know, the whole thing of who's going to come, I don't know, but I can tell you, for the most part, probably who owns, and it's going to be the big conglomerates that you're all bantering around because you just don't have the population base and the rooftops to support them.
Yeah.
One of the things mentioned at a previous meeting was that, unfortunately, you know, it's not your job to pick the winners and losers in the business community. It's your job to enforce the ordinances. And the ordinances are so broad that anybody with deep pockets can do what they want. And if Walgreens does want to come in, they can. You know, if Quick Trip wants to come in, they can. And And in the business world, the deep pockets often win. And whether the community's big enough or not, 10,000 cars is 10,000 cars.
That's right.
Well, and you also have another question then to ask yourselves. Am I misstating this when I say there's approximately 800 residents in the village of Cambridge?
Yeah, you're about half.
So it's 36.
No,
16.
800.
We have 14.
57 per sign.
About 1,500.
1,500.
1,500.
All right, so if you evaluate a traffic count on Highway 12 and 18 on a daily basis of 10,000 vehicles, and you have 1,500 people that live in the village, and I'll be generous and I'll give everybody 2 cars, that's 3,000 cars. So every day, 7,000 people drive through your community, and they don't come into the downtown because they're traversing to a
They're
location.
driving through the downtown.
Town of Oakland has 3,500. Christiana.
But
Deerfield's about
but
3
I guess the
miles.
point that I'm saying is, most of the people, we're not talking about the 14 or 1,500 people who live in this village. We're talking about 7,000 other people that are driving by on a daily basis. And, the opportunity for other businesses and, I'm going to say non-competitive businesses, because who in their right mind wants to relocate to a small village of 1,800, 1,500 people, go through the expense of acquiring, not the cheapest property in the world to build a brand new building and compete with someone who's got much less overhead in the same village? That doesn't make any sense.
I would seriously question the business acumen of anybody who would want to come in with a competing grocery store in this town.
It won't happen.
I-
I can assure
Ask
you.
the guy in Lake Mills.
I would just be shocked.
I can assure you that
Lake
won't
Mills
happen.
had a very established store. The guy came in on the edge of town, built a big store. And granted, that's my job to make sure that we provide a good business that doesn't do that.
And you
But
do,
it
because
happened,
I've been
and
in
he's
your
gone.
store, so.
Okay, all right. Anything else, Mike?
No.
May I
Thank
ask
you.
a clarification of your first question? You had asked if at the time a plan is presented that we can then change the zoning. And was that, did I understand it correctly?
The second portion of that was is right now you can you leave the zoning as it is, and then as he sells one of his lots, from what I understand, right now it's just one big lot. But if he has 4 lots and he sells 1 lot,
Mike,
I see that, but
So
is
there's-
that part of
there's-
what they voted on?
There's 4 lots.
So when he
currently.
sells lot number 4, can you at that time change the zoning for lot number 4 and leave the other 3 lots?
I'm gonna answer that. You cannot create island zoning.
Depending on which lots sell first, they wouldn't be islands, how they fill
Well,
in.
you have mixed use. I believe the Shell station is mixed use. This is residential. So it would be a very hard argument, once this is zoned business highway, for somebody to come in and buy a lot and come back and say, I want to put in condo. I mean, it's not, you can't create island zoning.
That's my
I think
question.
Mike addressed that last night as the building and zoning director.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mike. Got anything else? Does, please introduce yourself again.
Lisa Leadholm, 106 Center Court, subdivision of Westridge, adjacent to the proposed development. Last night, when we were sitting here there was you made a mention about lot number 2, which is the large one on this map, and you said most likely it would be subdivided. Can you tell us about what your vision is, or what?
I don't have a
maybe-
vision, but what I'm saying is a 4-lot CSM anywhere in the future, at anyone at any time, can petition for a lawful split of that parcel, as long as it meets the criteria of enough frontage for the lot to be appropriate.
So you envision that one being subdivided?
I said there's a possibility. I think I'd be remiss in not pointing out the fact that that's the case on a 4-lot CSM, that you can do that. I mean, I get accused of not being transparent and candid, but that's why I said that last night. I mean, that's the law and that's the reality.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Bob, did you have your hand up? Okay, please, come up to the table, please. Identify yourself.
Sure. Bob Salov, 2103 Pleasant Drive. I just have a question. Does your business highway require a CUP, a conditional use permit?
No, not for everything. There are some things that are allowed under conditional use, but there are a number of other things that are simply allowed based on the business highway. It's spelled out in 2 different sections of our ordinance.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions from the general population? Okay, now we'll
I'll
close
make a
that
motion per the Plan Commission recommendation, approve the request for the Cambridge Real Estate Venture LLC for the rezoning of the parcels as noted in the agenda from ag mixed use to business highway.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, now we get into discussion and questions. Who wants to lead off? I've got about 5 of them for you.
Thank you.
So if I can go back, because I'm just following up here. Number 1, I get it, you want to buy this property, you want to, at this point.
Well, I want to be clear, Cambridge Real Estate Ventures, the property is a holding of Cambridge Real Estate Ventures.
All right.
And it has been for 2.5 years.
All right. Have you actually
I'm the managing member of that company.
All right. So I don't need to know if it was an option with you and Donna.
But the point is, it is currently a holding of Cambridge Real Estate Ventures LLC. It has paid taxes in the village under that premise for the last 2 years.
All right. And you're current with all of
Correct.
your filings and taxes. All right. Can you identify any of the potential, or any buyers of these 4 lots that you have right now?
No, my job is to do what I have set forth, and that is to get the appropriate approvals I need, finish the engineering, spend a ton of money in putting in roads, sewer, and water for this project to succeed. I don't have any, I will not be building any of the future businesses or owning them. You know, we've been at this a while, and I've tried to make as many accommodations as possible, and this was the most appropriate methodology that I could come up with.
All right.
I mean,
Talk to us about runoff. It seems to be a concern, the water. Now, the water has been moved, and that was with DNR, correct?
Well, we're only relocating one source of water transfer on the site. But I will be installing, at a minimum, 2 regional retention ponds on the property. And I think the evaluation is going to come in that, in addition to that, to put a Band-Aid on things, that any future purchases of the 4 lots or division thereof would also have to potentially contemplate additional on-site small retention areas on their own lots.
Okay.
And there's not going to be, I'm not going to say never, but there's going to be little to no water coming off that site compared to what it has been historically.
All right.
I don't know how to be more explicit with you on, if you understand the permitting process and how stringent the state of Wisconsin has gotten with this, and how difficult it is to even, if there's something that looks like grass that grows in a wetlands area, they deem it a wetland. I mean, the ditch line that's on that property now from east to west, you couldn't float a styrofoam cup down that ditch because it's so overgrown and full. And I went out there last April and took pictures, and after the big rains that we had in April last year, there was anywhere from 2 to 8 inches of water in that ditch that goes east to west. So, you know, I'm not trying to, I understand that they have water problems, but they had all those water problems in 1980s when those houses were built. That's not going to go away unless something is done with this property that's responsible to maintain and control and keep the water from that 30 acres on that 30 acres. There's no soft soaping beyond that.
And Dane Comey, might want to take a look at the water rights.
Well,
It's just not the state, I would think.
everybody gets a kick at the cat.
Yeah, they're going to, because they're doing a study right now in the town of Deerfield.
Correct. This is not a, take my word for it kind of thing, it ain't gonna happen. There's a bunch of committees and permitting entities that are very stringent and don't allow that kind of stuff anymore.
Okay. All right, a couple more questions that I have. Lights, and
That's all under your jurisdiction in the future.
Yep.
That's under your purview 100%, as well as property setbacks and elevations and building heights and floor area ratios. That's all under your purview. You get to say yes or no.
We have that control.
so that's a 30-foot setback, and so,
It's 30-foot setback because that's what's in your ordinance. If you had 50 foot in your ordinance, it'd be 50 foot.
I mean, if we're very concerned, maybe we take a look at changing an ordinance that says if it's a business highway up against a residential property, we need the rear setback to be 50 feet instead of 30 feet.
But we also have to be cognizant of the businesses that are already here, like the CC sandwiches and the,
Correct.
that little mall area, that they have to have the same
Well-
setback.
Yeah, you can't create a hardship for an existing
Right.
business.
Correct. Yep.
So I mean, it always boils down to you can't have your cake and eat it too. I
Right.
mean, somewhere there's got to be a rule that everybody's got to follow.
I got it.
all right, those were my questions.
We did all 5.
Well, we kind of, I had run
Really?
off.
You want him to quick?
Well,
I'll keep going on the water
He keeps
one.
asking for other people to have questions.
I'm
So I thought
actually, I have always been very worried about the water thing. I'm actually pretty satisfied with the water, and it's my neighborhood. I live on 310 West Main Street. So if it's gonna flood, it's as likely to come into my backyard as other people's backyards. And based on, I think your statements are absolutely accurate. I think a development on this site is gonna better control the water that's coming off that site than what we have today. Because today we have nothing. Everything just flows as it needs to flow. As we do any kind of development on this site, there's going to be oversight from the state, there's going to be oversight from the county, there's going to be oversight from our own building inspector.
Correct.
So it is going to be, it is
Your
going.
own engineering,
Our
town
old
and country?
engineering, right. There's going to be oversight from multiple
Correct.
entities. And all of this board is very concerned about that. So we're going to make sure those entities are doing their due diligence in making sure that that doesn't happen. So for me, the water is probably a less of a worry than some of the other things, than some of the other things that we might have.
Who decides where those retention ponds go?
The developer and the builder. Whoever chooses to build there is going to decide that.
We propose, but they need to meet the state criteria. So if they say it needs to be bigger and it won't fit where I want it to go, it goes where it fits, so.
Right. And I think when I drive past Deerfield all the time and I see that retention pond on that thing with the beautiful little thing fountain, I think it's beautiful. I love it. I love seeing the stuff there. So I would love to have a lake near my backyard. I would love to live on water. But, yeah, so.
But that was well dealt with.
Okay.
We don't know.
Right, we don't know, but we can, but we don't, you're right, we don't know. But when we work with the developer and the builder, we can ask them, we can say this is what we're looking for. And if a developer or builder wants to have a good relationship in this community, they're gonna listen to us.
And for a reference about that, until no one knows how much groundwater is gonna be there when that pond. So if it's intended to be a dry pond and you hit water, then the engineering and the permitting kick in and that gets halted, and I have to redesign and re-engineer to make it wider and shallower and lose more property to hold the water if it's intended to be a dry pond. So, but no one knows till you, I mean, you guys have water in your basements, so I think we have a pretty good idea on where the water tables are, but if you look at the master plan for the village of Cambridge, I mean, there isn't 500 square feet in this whole region that even is recommended for basements, so.
I just know that Dalen Creek starts up there somewhere, and when we get a lot of rain, that little creek becomes a river.
Well, and you know, and I'm not trying to throw somebody on the bus, but in the future, maybe you guys should consider an evaluation of the water that you're receiving from your extraterritorial properties that are shedding water into the village. I mean,
All right.
And then I know a lot of people say, what is it gonna look like, who's gonna be in there, but quite frankly, coming into Cambridge now, we have the old Ken Olson building on one side, and we have Catrano's on the other. So, you know, I don't think it's gonna be that much different. I don't think whatever we put in is gonna look any worse than what we've got right now coming into Cambridge.
well,
We'll have a little bit more control of it.
18 from the intersection of 1218 merge going west to the river or creek isn't exactly the most.
I mean, Highway 18 coming, yeah, Highway 18.
That's not the most attractive
That's
stretch
our
of-
industrial park.
Yeah.
That's our industrial park, so, you know, we're just,
Right.
you know,
I will tell you that I envision, if you're looking for something with 4 sites, I'm envisioning like the dental care. And then we have the doctor's office. That's what I'm thinking.
There's nothing saying that existing businesses in this community won't decide that they think that they'll do better if they
Go across the street.
go across the street and catch more cross traffic. I mean, it doesn't have to be a new business coming into town. It could be an existing, expanding, or stepping up their profile.
All right. All right, other questions here from trustees?
I just had a question about the power lines. The elevation is pretty high there. Are you going to change the elevation there, or is that just down the line if they want to develop
You
that
know,
way?
ATC's got some fairly stringent policies on, you know, how much excavation you can do under those. I mean, the only thing that you can have under those is green space or parking lots. You can't build any permanent structures under that overhead easement. And they get a little touchy about how close you can excavate up to the actual stanchion itself without spending a fortune on them approving the retention for that. So, you know, I don't
Probably
just
not.
just from a common sense and economic perspective, I don't see somebody wanting to buy that lot and excavate the heck out of it.
so I think Cambridge Real Estate Ventures has gone back to the drawing board many, many times to try and come up with what is a good solution to an area that the Village of Cambridge, again, has wanted to have developed. You know, we want development in that area. Residential will never go into that area. I really think, I think the Cambridge Real Estate Ventures has come back with our best option for us at this point. Then it's up to us, or whoever's on the board and whoever's on the planning commission, once these lots are sold, to do our due diligence for the people who buy those lots, to make sure that those people are responsible to what we want to see in Cambridge.
As well as the neighboring.
Right,
community.
exactly, right.
Okay, all right, thank you, Paula.
Mhm.
Chris?
Question.
I have one more question, and this, you know, this is maybe backtracking, but
She should come back.
in
Just
speaking
come up.
to
Yeah.
so many
Need you to
families,
come up so you can do that.
in speaking to so many families in the community.
Can you identify yourself
Lisa
again?
Leadholm, 106 Center Court, again. As a longtime teacher in Cambridge, I've spoken with so many families that are wondering why that parcel of land was cost prohibitive to go residential in the first place. There's such a need for moderate housing in Cambridge. The subdivision that we live in is pretty close-knit. Affordable housing, that seems to be something that's needed in Cambridge, and I'm not sure why it's cost prohibitive to put more housing, a similar neighborhood to what we have there. I just don't understand that.
Well, the cost of the sewer and water extension, the grading, all of the wetland retention, a metered intersection, you know, those would have to be multi-million-dollar homes I mean, you have to be able to recover the cost.
Right.
And there's north of $1.5 million that has to go into sewer, water, and roads. There's possibly 7, 8 buildable acres for that type of activity. Of course, you already know what problems you have with basements in your subdivision. So you take, how many lots per acre are you allowed residentially? I'm trying to be honest, give her a very clear picture of.
I don't know.
So if we got 7 acres roughly that would work for something like this, just the infrastructure improvements are more than the average lot cost a person could even afford, and then you haven't even factored in the cost of the dirt.
Okay.
So it's just cost prohibitive.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. And this is what we've been waiting for, some answers
Well,
in terms of
Thank you.
what our proposal.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to give answers, but.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, any other,
Just one more comment. Town and Country is doing the engineering for that, so they're going to take a look at what elevation those buildings can go in and et cetera, right? Is that correct?
Correct, and in all fairness and in candor, from one of the Plan Commission members also brought up last night a concern about, are we going to be relying on the proposed future interceptor that's going to be north of this property? And I was very clear to specifically say, no, we've designed this
That's right.
to keep all of our utilities on site. Everything's going to gravity feed to the existing manhole in the southeast corner of this property.
That's good.
Because, who's the gentleman?
It was Mr. Anderson, Millsap.
Jeff.
Jeff Millsap.
He's like, if this project is contingent on tying into that interceptor, which is, I don't know where the money's approximately said, I don't know where the money's going to come from, nor do I know when it's going to get installed, then we have another issue. But that's not the case. We're designing everything to be self-contained and to go south, gravity flow.
Okay.
okay, you're good for questions? You're good? Eric? Sue, anything?
I'm fine.
All right, I'm going to tell you how I'm going to vote, and it's based upon 4 items. I am going to vote for this, and I'm probably going to disappoint some people, but here's why I'm voting for this rezoning. Number 1, it's property taxes. Right now, we have agricultural land, and it's just about nothing. We will be moving to a business park, and I think that the village of Cambridge could use the additional property taxes. Number 2, the Plan Commission will be monitoring this, and anything that goes in there will have to be approved not only by the Plan Commission, but it will also come before us. So,
And I can guarantee that. I'm on the Plan Commission, and I don't want to see a used trailer park lot, just like some of the concerns, okay?
And our pole building is built as a
Right.
resident, as a commercial piece of property, because I do see it.
Mechanisms.
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, number 3, I'm glad that we're not doing any TIF. And so we've moved
Me
off
too.
of that.
Unfortunately, me too.
Okay, well, this is on your nickel.
Correct.
And it will be a lot of them if you're looking at millions of dollars, and we appreciate that. But, and then lastly, folks, this property has been here, it's on 1218. Development is going to occur, and that is a commercial site, a business highway. And it isn't going to stay as ag, and nothing is ever going to happen. I do feel that in our conversations with Todd, I wish we would have had some more information early on. I just didn't know if you had it, but I appreciate you coming before us last evening and tonight and learning about this. But I trust you. I'm going out there on a limb now, but I trust you that you're going to be able to give us a project that a community, only 1,600 people or so, but it's meritorious for what we're offering.
Right.
And development is going to occur. I'm convinced of that. So I don't want to grandstand, but those are going to be the reasons why I'm voting affirmatively.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Let's do roll call on this one if we can.
Trustee Brunig,
Yes.
trustee Hollenbeck,
Yes.
trustee Christensen,
Yes,
trustee Whitwer,
Yes.
trustee Cumier,
Yes.
and President McNally.
Yes. Okay. It's passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, unfinished business. And I just give you updates. You know, Lisa has left this one on. The only thing I can tell you is that we're having a meeting this week, the commission is, and it's a closed session meeting. So that's it, but that is scheduled for tomorrow night, so we have that. Moving on to correspondence. No, I just talked about it.
Did you?
Yeah, yeah, it's the meeting. It's a closed session.
Unless there's anything else anybody else wants to discuss
Yeah.
regarding the Fire and EMS Commission, that's why it's on the agenda each month, in case there's further discussion about their meetings and anything else that has occurred in the last
Right.
month.
Yeah. Nothing's happened since the last meeting because we haven't had any other meetings. So. But there is a meeting coming up. I just can't tell you what it's about. So, okay, meeting announcements. Read these. Library Board is on March 11th. Water and Sewer Committee is on March 17th. Village Board, again here, on March 24th. Personnel Committee on March 25th. Public Works, March 25th. Election, April 7th. Plan Commission, April 13th. Joint Law Enforcement, April 14th. Village Board, April 14th. And Water and Sewer on April 21st. Questions, referrals to staff for future agenda items, the solar farm.
Yeah, and then I just have another question. I know our sign ordinance has certain colors for downtown. Did Dynamic Fitness get approval for their signage?
I don't have any idea.
Because I know when Galleria put in a black awning, they had to get a conditional use in order to use a black awning. Dynamic Fitness has black with a fluorescent green. I don't know if those are in our color palette. So I just want to make sure that we're treating all.
So it's their awning with their sign on it?
It's their awning with their sign on it out front. I just want to make sure we're treating all properties downtown the same. And if they didn't, then perhaps retroactively, they need to bring that in front of the Plan Commission.
Okay.
I will bring it up to the building inspector and check with him.
Thank you. And it may have been done, I just may not be aware of it.
And then we're gonna, the next meeting, we're gonna have what, the solar panel
That'll be on the agenda, the
All
solar,
right.
solar panel project.
For discussion.
for discussion. And I think if we can get Roxanne's, you know, her
Yeah, Paula had
concerns.
requested she
Yeah.
give us her statement.
So if
But if
that's
we can
part
get
of
it
the packet,
disseminated.
I think that would be good.
Yeah.
If she could come back, that'd be nice too.
Yeah.
I concur.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Anything else for
Yes.
questions?
Oh, yep.
for us?
Quick question.
Yes.
Paula and I, this concerns Paula and I. Our last meeting is April 14th?
Or is our
it-
last meeting the next meeting in March?
No,
Nope.
it's the 14th.
It is the
Because the
14th?
new ones take over on the third Tuesday of April.
Okay, third Tuesday. Okay, got it.
And
Thank
I
you.
believe
Thank you.
your can't think of the word. Reconstruction meeting, that's not what it's called, but it's anyway, the meeting that you do to reorganize the board, reorganization meeting. I think Lisa told me you usually defer it to your second meeting in April versus having a third meeting in April on the third
Right.
Tuesday.
Right.
So it will be after that first April meeting, you will be here.
All
So
right,
you
thank
still
you.
have another couple of meetings, ladies. So don't, don't you think you're going anywhere here. you have anything controversial, we'll try to.
Oh, don't
bring it
worry,
in
when
now.
there's other things coming up, I'll be on that side of the microphone.
Okay.
As long as you announce who you are.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right.
Paula Hollenbeck, no
No
kids.
children.
Yeah.